I'd like to welcome Lin Jarvis, Managing Director, Yamaha Motor Racing. Good morning, Lin.
Good morning.
Lin, how strong do you feel Jorge and Ben are this season as title challengers?
Well, of course, as you begin each season, the most important thing is that your riders are arriving in good shape and that they are healthy and injury-free. And from that perspective, they've had a good winter. I've seen them in Sepang 1 and Sepang 2, and I would say that they're in top form, indeed injury-free. And I think they have, every reason to be confident about going into the first few races of the year.
You've started testing this year chasing Honda again. Does this worry you for the season ahead?
We were, in the end of Sepang 2, just a little bit behind Honda in the absolute times. But nobody really knows how the season is going to pan out in terms of where is the technical level, exactly how we are. We've done 2 tests in the same circuit, both in Sepang. But of course we're racing over 18 different circuits. And we've seen, I would say, 2 particular things this year. One is the change of tyres is very important. Obviously the change to 1000cc is the most fundamentally significant change. And to some extent I think that's leveled the playing field again, because everybody starts again from developing their bike to follow the new regulations. The new tyres, this has created some different characteristics both for the riders and for the manufacturers to deal with. So although Honda were quicker than us in absolute time on the last test, they also have their own issues. And let's see, because the next test is in Jerez, and as I said, we will race on many different circuits, so it will be very interesting to see how each different bike with its strong points and weak points will be competitive on each track.
Do you feel the 1000cc bikes will provide closer racing and a more exciting spectator spectacle than the 800cc era?
It's difficult to predict, I think, but as I said, I think the change of regulations brings everybody anyway to the same starting point. So in this respect, I think that the start of this year will probably be closer. The bikes will be closer in terms of absolute comparison and performance compared to last year. Will it bring closer racing in general? I don't know. We have to see that, because the 1000cc will be different. The bikes are heavier, the power is stronger, the tyres are different. So I think I'm excited about the season. I think it's going to bring some great racing.
There's been much media discussion about the relationship between the MSMA and Dorna, looking at the 2013 regulations. Is there a possibility you could pull out if you're not satisfied?
Well, of course, that's a pretty strong statement. There are a lot of ongoing discussions, and I think what's important to say is that perhaps in the end of last year there appeared to be perhaps some different opinions, some friction that was evolving between the participants and the promoter. That situation has changed since the beginning of this year, and now you see an area of greater collaboration. And I think there's more common understanding now. We're in this together from different angles, different perspectives, but I think we need to see a championship where the promoter can grow and also make good business by running the sport, but also where the manufacturers can be present. I think this is very important for manufacturers to stay in the sport, but also where private entries can join. So what's important now is to have good discussions in the coming months and to make the right plans for the future. Surely we will have to make changes, and in particular this will be based on cost saving. We're aware of, everybody's aware of the current economic circumstances are very difficult, so we need to create a sport in the future that will provide excellent racing, give good global coverage, but for an affordable cost.
MotoGP remains the sole road racing world championship class in which Yamaha competes. Does this increase its significance to Yamaha?
I think it does, yes. As I said, the economic circumstances are pretty tough at this moment, and unfortunately that resulted in Yamaha withdrawing from some of the other classes at the end of last year. So now MotoGP indeed is our sole world championship level road race. It's always been very important for us, and I think it will only increase the significance, the importance, also in terms of exploitation. If Yamaha is wishing to promote its brand through road racing, this is it. MotoGP is the pinnacle class and the one that we're in.
What would Yamaha like to see in the future for the World MotoGP Championship?
I think what's important planning ahead is indeed to make future plans together with the promoters and the FIM and our colleague manufacturers to see a good sustainability of the sport. We want to see exciting racing. We want to see events that are giving global coverage. You know, I think due to various reasons we saw a sport that we had pretty much a dominance in southern Europe, in particular in Spain and in Italy. We have many races in the last years. And I think I'd like to see a situation where we once again have global coverage. We want to see races also in South America. We want to see more races in Asia. We want to maintain the strong races we have in Europe. So we would like to see a sport that provides an exciting show for affordable participation fees, but also that becomes more attractive also to bring in other commercial sponsors and partners, not only for the finance that they bring, but also the extra exposure that you get when there's activation of major brands. So we want to see a good, solid mid-term plan.
You start the season with 2 new sponsors joining the MotoGP for 2012. Can you tell us a little bit more about them?
Yes, this year we have almost all of our, shall we say, existing sponsors from 2011 have stayed on board with us. There's a couple of changes in there, and I would say the most significant new sponsor to join us is JX Nippon Oil and Energy Corporation. That's a real mouthful, but basically you will see it on the bike as ENEOS brand. ENEOS is a brand of petroleum and lubricants that is their main brand. And they are a company, a Japanese corporation, very strong in oil and energy, and they have a strong business connection with Yamaha. So we welcome ENEOS joining us. And also we have an Italian company, which is good because the team is based here in Italy, and we're joined by the company Pizzoli. And Pizzoli is one of the major companies here in Italy in the food sector, and their speciality is in the potato business.
You said you were not completely satisfied with Ben's final results last year. What do you expect from him this season? Yeah,
I would say, you know, I was quoted, perhaps misquoted last year when sometimes elements are taken out of a longer conversation, a longer interview. My assessment of Ben's performance last year was, I think at the end of the year, Ben had the potential to be higher in the championship than where he was. And, you know, last year was his first full year with us in the factory team. And I think that, you know, from what I've seen in Sepang test, and I've talked to Ben on several occasions, I think he's stronger physically and also mentally. I think the experience of last year will have benefited him. He won a race last year in Assen, which was fabulous to see. I expect to see him win more races this year. And so I think Ben has unfulfilled potential still in MotoGP.
Jorge, obviously the 2010 world champion and a very strong title contender last season. What do you expect from him this year?
Well, indeed, if you look at Jorge's last 3 seasons, I think he was second, then first, then second. So it's time to be first again now. I think he has every potential. For me, there are 2 riders that are that have a plus alpha at this moment, and that is Casey Stoner and Jorge Lorenzo. So I have every confidence that Jorge has, you know, let's say in terms of his capacity, he is definitely able to win the World Championship again this year, I have no doubt. So let's see how it works out with the bike and the competition, and of course racing. It's a long season, many things can happen, but I expect to see Jorge winning many races this year.
The Tech 3 riders have been showing strong results in early season testing. How do you evaluate their chances this year?
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting. Obviously Andrea is the new kid on the block, let's say in the Tech 3 team, coming over from the Repsol Honda of last year onto the Yamaha, and also dealing with an early season injury where he injured his shoulder with a motocross crash. But I mean, the last test in Sepang, he was 3rd place at the end. So I think this shows that he's been now able to adapt, and he has the speed. Also, we saw Cal in the last test, very competitive times as well. So I think that Tech 3 could have a really storming year this year again, and it will be very interesting to see what they can do. There could even be a race victory there.
Do you see the CRT teams this season as a good addition to MotoGP or a roadblock for your riders?
Well, the CRT, I think it's still too early to say because, frankly, we've only tested in Sepang with half of the CRT grid. So the next test in Jerez, we will see the other CRTs, the Aprilia-engined CRTs, join us. So then we'll be able to have more of a benchmark to judge what is the performance of the CRTs. I think it's a welcome addition to the grid because anyway we saw a situation where due to economic circumstance the grid was dwindling and we needed to increase the quantity of bikes. So this is a positive thing. In terms of their pure performance, I do not expect to see a CRT seriously challenging for a race win or a podium. I don't expect that. It could happen. But the CRT depends also on two things, I think. Depends on the absolute performance potential of the bike, but also the rider. And I think this is something that is important for us in the future to make sure also not only that the teams are of the top level, but also to make sure that the riders are of the top level, because safety is very, very important in the MotoGP. And so we want to have more competitors, but it's important to be at the top of their game.
With most rider contracts coming to an end this season, which riders are you watching in particular at the moment?
Well, I'm watching them all because certainly all of the factory riders it's interesting to see. The two I'm watching most are our own two riders, Jorge and Ben. Also interesting to see how Andrea gets on this year, Andrea Dovizioso, and also Cal. So I'm watching the four Yamahas more than the most. If you talk about next year's contracts, obviously we are looking more towards, my ideal scenario would be to retain both of our current riders. But at the same time, every rider, with the exception of Stefan Bradl, every other rider's contract is up for, shall we say, renewal at the end of this year or change. So I think it's going to be a very busy season off track behind the scenes. Let's see.
When will you start 2013 rider contract negotiations?
That's a funny question. I would say we started with Jorge in 2006 and we started with Ben in 2009. The reason I say that is because when you have riders in-house, it's an ongoing scenario, it's an ongoing rapport, and you know, we are in constant contact with the management of the riders, with the riders themselves. In terms of getting more serious about really talking about terms and conditions, I'd like to see things done in the first half of the season. Even earlier would be welcome. Let's see. Anyway, as soon as there's some news of note, then you'll surely be the first to hear.
And finally, are you prepared to make any predictions for this season?
Predictions are always difficult to make. I would say my predictions are that we will see very exciting racing. I think it should be an interesting battle. In particular, I expect between Honda and Yamaha, similar to last year. I think Yamaha will be much more competitive than they were last year. And I think that we will win more races than last year. In terms of the final season result, nobody knows, but anyway, our challenge, our target, is to have at least 2 blue riders in the first 3 and 1 on the top step. So let's see what happens.
Lin, thank you for your time.
You're welcome.